Welcome back to another Mobile Centrics Tips and Tricks. My name is Derek, and today I'm going to be showing you a repair that you might be finding yourself in need of, and that is this. Now, you've probably seen this before if you repair phones on the daily. That is where you get a tear in a flex cable. And on this one in particular, this is the proximity sensor assembly, and you've got a couple components on here that are crucial for Face ID functionality. And although they don't actually carry out the function of Face ID, they are necessary for the protocol of Face ID. But this cable itself still has those functions. What it's missing because of this particular tear is just the speaker. So there's two ways we can go about this. Let me show you what those are. The first way, and probably the more complex way, because it requires a little bit additional skill, is to desolder the proximity sensor itself from the flex cable and transfer it over to another original flex cable, which requires desoldering that one without damaging its flex, freshening up the pads with new solder, making sure that there's evenness between all of them, and soldering the proximity sensor back on. That way you avoid losing Face ID and you regain all of the other functions as well, including the speaker. Certain tears might be simpler to just fix the actual tear itself, and that's what I'm going to show you right now, giving you some tips and tricks so that if this ever happens to you, you'll be ready. Now, in order to make my life easier, I'm going to be using this. This is a silicone remover that's designed specifically for helping you with underfill, but it has a unique characteristic when it comes into contact with the black covering that's on the flex cables themselves. Now I'm going to take a very small amount and we'll place it on the flex cable. Just like that. Cap that back up so it doesn't dry out. And you might see a small chemical reaction with some bubbles. As you can kind of see there's some bubbles forming. Let's go under the microscope and take a closer look. So here I'm going to carefully just spread out the silicone remover to help kind of loosen up all of the surrounding paint, this black paint. And I'm going to take a little tool once I've waited a few minutes, and you'll see that it'll just peel up away from the flex cable. And I'm just going to clear enough area that I can be sure that I'm getting all of it. And I'm going to do the same on the back side. Now I'm just going to cover up any of the area that I don't want solder to get on. So basically almost undoing what I just did. And here I'm going to cover up these traces so that I can expose them one at a time, curing it with the UV light. I'll take my razor blade here. We're going to scratch away just this outer trace, add some flux and some solder paste. Now I'm going to go and bridge the larger trace together here, just like that, and then tin the lead there, the small little trace there. I'm going to tin it up and clean it up with some isopropyl alcohol. Now we'll protect this larger trace with some UV solder mask, and then I'm going to tin a jumper here by removing the protective coating using some solder paste. Add some flux, and using some tweezers and my soldering iron, I'm going to tack it in place, bend it and get it to form to the right shape, and then add it to the other side of the flex that's torn. We'll cut off the excess, clean it up with some isopropyl alcohol and a brush, and I'm going to knock off any of the tails that are kind of still there. Add some more UV mask, cure it, and then I'm going to uncover the second trace that was next to that small one by just scraping away at the UV mask on both sides. Add some solder paste, tin up the traces, add a jumper, bend it to shape, and tack it onto the other side. Now I can snip off the excess, clean it up with some isopropyl alcohol, and cover it with UV mask. And now we'll do the same on the back side, because the traces on the back are not the same as the ones on the front. We'll tin up the traces, run jumper, I've bridged the bigger one together again, clean it up, cover it with some UV mask, basically repeating the exact same process we did on the other side. Cure it with the UV light, add some flux and solder on the last jumper here. Clean it up, it's the same process over and over and over again. and protect it with the UV mask, and then cure it with the UV light. Like the video if you think that that was too much work, and stay tuned because I'm going to show you the other method of swapping over the proximity sensor instead of repairing the flex cable. And here we can see we don't get any automatic notification about Face ID. Let's go into the settings and check, let's go and check our Face ID. There it is. And see if we can set it up. It gets started. And let me see if I can focus. We can clearly see that Face ID is still working. And so is the sound. Now I'm going to take the proximity sensor off, make sure everything still looks good. We'll clamp it on up in our little vise here, add some flux. And now you can wick these off and add new solder if you'd like. But I prefer to just go and over it and pull the solder over from one pad to the other, kind of evening them all out. You just gotta make sure that you don't add excess solder into those middle 4 larger pads, and you just need to even out the exterior ones. And here I've already fixed this flex cable. A little bit of the black stuff came up. I had to cover that up just like we did on the flex cable before. And now using the hot iron on the back side, I'm going to carefully nudge it into place. The residual heat will pass through the flex cable just like on the extraction. This time I just got to nudge it like that. And one more tap. It should be good. And under an angle, I can see that all the joints look nice and solid, so we should be good to go. And we'll take the ambient light sensor off the flex cable as well with the same method. Heat from below with the iron, and then it should just fall away. And I'm going to add some solder paste because the black paint here likes to stick up a little bit, so fluffing up these pads always helps me in soldering the ambient light sensor back on. Now we'll clean it up with some isopropyl alcohol and a clean room wipe. Add some flux and put it back in place. Put it back on the iron and heat it up. And take a good close look at it and we should be good. Nice flush solid joints. After transferring over the ambient light sensor, proximity sensor, and the ear speaker to a new flex, you see that now, just like before, testing the ear speaker, I've got the port disconnected just to make it easier to see if we've got sound. So we'll go there. And you see we do have our sound back. And then also, just to make sure everything went well, we can go over to our Face ID. And you can see that it works as well. So yeah, those are the 2 methods to fixing a torn flex cable in order to retain Face ID.